Hello and welcome to the PC Security channel. As you can tell, today we'll be talking about something slightly different, not so much the technicalities of cybersecurity, but more about the broader implications of it. I'm of course talking about the Israel airstrike against Hamas based on the cyber attacks that they were conducting, which is potentially the most controversial topic I could ever pick for a TPSC video. I want to get demonetized real bad apparently. Wait, I don't monetize anyway, why do I care? Let's go ahead. No, to be honest, I'll be trying to steer clear of any political issues here and just talk about the cybersecurity aspect. I just want to start a discussion, hear what you guys think about it, because there are definitely certain trends I'm seeing recently that kind of disturb me a little bit. And one of them is that we're seeing people's online identity be considered more and more their personal identity. And the fact that somebody's going to undergo a military operation based on the intel that the cyber attack originated from this physical location, what exactly is you on the internet? Is it your Facebook account? Is it your IP address? Is it your MAC address? Is it the combination of every account you've ever had, some of which you may not even be aware of? Or is it the information in those accounts? Because what if somebody just opens an account using my name, which I'm not aware of or have access to? Am I still responsible for what they do and say? What if my accounts get hacked? What if my computer gets hacked? What if there's a botnet running on my system currently doing cyber attacks against a certain country? Does that mean I'll have FBI break down my door at some point? All of these are really interesting and disturbing questions that I think we need to start asking. We're getting to a point where laws associated with personal responsibility and identity are translating to cyberspace, and nobody seems to have a clue how to make that work. In the real world, you are your physical self, right? If you pull the trigger on the gun, you're responsible. The problem with translating that to cyberspace is that how does anybody know if you click the button on the mouse? And even if you did, how did they know you knew what you were doing? And what I do think is that incidents like this can potentially set a very dangerous precedent. There are already allegations of Russian involvement in United States elections via cyber hacking and stuff like that. And the largest problem with any such issues is just that how do you know who's doing it? Is it a random person in the country? Is it the country itself? Is it their intelligence? Who do you hold accountable or responsible in situations like this? And no matter what you do, it's always going to be very easy for the other party to fool you. For example, if I were a nation state and I wanted to conduct cyber espionage and I didn't want to be caught, how hard do you think it's going to be for me to have access to a random computer or servers in some location which I can claim I had nothing to do with? So if I'm Russia and I'm planning a cyber attack and I don't want the other country to know it's me, how hard do you think it's going to be for me to fake that? It's going to be ridiculously easy, and it's going to be really hard for any kind of intelligence to figure that out. And no matter how much evidence you have, it's never going to be enough. So when we're talking about cyber attacks, we're talking about a computer, right? And there are computers everywhere. We live in the era of ubiquitous computing. People can own computers, but people can't own actions associated with computers. And sometimes it's really hard to make that distinction. But at the end of the day, it brings us back to the argument. I mean, the tool doesn't matter. If you hit someone with a stick, it's still you hitting the person with a stick. The fact that you use the stick doesn't rid you of the responsibility. And I guess you can argue if you use the computer for cyber attack, it doesn't mean that you're no longer responsible for it. And I will agree. But the problem is, we are not at a point technologically where we can actually merge our online identities with our personal identities and just say that there's a one-to-one correlation every time. There are just tons of ways to exploit it. The governments are just way too far back on that spectrum. I can see the frustration of politicians because they used to have control over everything. And so I can totally imagine the surprise on their face when somebody tells them, okay, there's a random kid doing something and we have no clue what to do about it. And they're like, what do you mean you can't do anything about it? We're the government, we can do anything. And then they say, okay, just bring me that iPhone, or just shut down that computer, or take down the whole internet. I don't care. And that just shows the disconnect that politicians have with technology these days, and that's a bit of a problem. I don't think that's the right response. I don't think the right response is to say, I don't understand encryption, let's just ban it, like they did in Australia. I think that's a very naive approach, and it's not going to have good results in the long term, or the short term for that matter. What I think we need is more competent authorities that can figure these things out, and a better understanding of technology. You can't stop technology. You can't stop people from using computers. And I think the problem is a lot of authorities don't know how to respond to something like this. And I think the right call is to say, okay, we're having cyber attacks. Let's turn up the cyber defense and use that as a new front for exerting our authority. A great example is how it works in games. So if you cheat in games, you get banned. Well, not to say that that works very well, but I think that's the area in which we need to address these things. So if somebody does something illegal online, you hit back online and limit their access on the internet. The solution is not to then try to trace what person did that, because you're losing on the internet game. You just have to go to their house and knock their door down. But as we transition into a more digital era, I can totally understand that there are going to be massive gaps in understanding on either side, and people are going to have issues because of that. It's just something to watch out for. So I want to know your thoughts on a lot of these issues. I think it's going to be really interesting to have a discussion on that. Let me know in the comments, and I will try to respond to anything that's interesting going on down there. We do often talk about these kind of things on the Discord server, so if you want to participate, you can join that. There is, of course, more regularly scheduled content coming up on TPSC, so stay tuned for that. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it. This is Leo from the PC Security channel, and as always, stay informed, stay secure.